Welcome to the Absolute Arsenal podcast. I'm your host, PJ Davidson. You can follow us online at Twitter as well as on Instagram at AbsoluteAFC. Again, that's at AbsoluteAFC. You can also find our blog on the web at www.absoluteafc.com. Well, we are officially at the end of the January transfer window. That is the big news at hand. Obviously a very exciting window in a lot of ways for Arsenal, but you could also say underwhelming. It's a really interesting one to dive into, so let's do that. There's really no way around it when it comes to the ambitions that Arsenal had in the January transfer window, so we didn't exactly get our primary targets. I don't think that's a disappointment, though. The window started with the entire Mikhailo Mudryk saga, I guess you could call it. It seems like years ago at this point, but the player, as has been said, was twerking for us all over social media. It seemed pretty clear that Arsenal was his preferred destination and that we were in for him. I think that the Kroenke family has been in for a lot of criticism over the years, Silent Stan, etc. But as soon as they took on full ownership of the club, I don't think there's much to argue about in terms of their ambition. As soon as they had that full control, they've clearly been willing to put money into the club. I mean, you just look at the stats compared to other clubs in the Premier League, other clubs in major European leagues, Champions League clubs. We're right up there with the best of them. So you can't fault the Kroenkes and you can't fault the ambition on the part of Edu and Arteta. Clearly, they are very upfront when it comes to what they want to do and asking for funds. And as far as it's been seen, Stan and Josh Kroenke have been willing to provide said funds. With that said, we haven't had to deal with the beast that is Chelsea, and really Todd Boehly's Chelsea. The Abramovich era of Chelsea was a big one in terms of the spending and a start of what the Premier League has become in terms of the crazy money that's come into the league. But this is just unlike anything we've ever seen, realistically. I mean, there's no logic, there's no plan. It's just frivolous spending. As many people might know, Todd Boehly is also owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and something that's really big in baseball when it comes to contracts is the concept of these long-term deals where you are realistically paying for 3 good years, maybe 4, on these 8, 9, 10-year deals. And you know that that's what you're going in for. That's not a thing in football, though. In soccer, it's just not how things have been done. But Boehly seems to want to do this, especially when it comes to FFP, is these big long-term deals where the odds that you're getting money for the player, or value for the money, I should say, are pretty slim. Between the Mudryk deal and now they recently did the biggest deal in Premier League history in Enzo Fernandez from Benfica. It's just crazy. So to get back to Arsenal, we wanted Mudryk. It seemed clear that Mudryk wanted us. It's hard to say if there were other possibly political motives at play when it comes to the end of the Abramovich era and Shakhtar's celebration of this deal, the Ukrainian flag being very, very present, the fact that they're going to be playing a friendly in the Ukraine, and I think it's all great for a country that's gone through a lot. Just the deal kind of just it's fishy, and I know that some people have been in. Or Edu has been in for criticism from some people in some corners of the internet, which I just think is incredibly unfair. Because look at what we did do, which was a deal for Leandro Trossard, which looks to be an absolute masterclass with again, the money that is currently going around, the spend that we had to put into a player who has been really, really productive for a quality Brighton side. I think that the win that we had against them this season was very understated. I think we're going to look back on that as a massive, massive victory. But he's a player with Premier League experience who Arsenal are very familiar with. We wanted him when he was at Genk. But understandably, and it seems to be a theme with Brighton players, is they wanted to go to a team where they would get to play week in, week out. And that probably wasn't going to happen for Trossard at Arsenal at the time. And I believe we didn't think he was going to be ready either. So I think it might have gone both ways there. But nonetheless, it looks like a masterclass. I mean, he's come in, he made an immediate impact on the pitch. He was a huge contributor in the comeback victory against United. Having a role to play at the end with both the final play that got the goal for Nketiah, but also just keeping possession there. I think the transfer fee alone was worth it, and clearly he's come in with the mindset of, I'm not here to be a backup. I want to play. I want to take Martinelli's spot. I want to take someone's spot in the starting lineup. And I think that's the level of competition that we need at Arsenal and a club with the ambitions that we want. You look at the bench of a Manchester City every week. Again, ridiculous spending. I get that part. But you look at the bench there, and that's quality players who are pushing for starting berths. I mean, you've got a guy, Jack Grealish, who, $100+ million man, and while he's having a decent run right now, it took a while. That didn't happen right away. So, let's see what Arsenal can continue to do in providing competition. So again, Leandro Trossard, phenomenal. That deal is an A for me. Forget Mudryk. I think that's a great deal, one that will pay dividends over the coming years. And that's the sort of competition that we need to be going for. And yeah, sorry he didn't cost 100 million quid. The next one, who I'll probably mispronounce, Jakub Kiwior, I don't know. Polish, left-footed, left center back, something that we clearly need, given that I think the stat now is Gabriel Magalhaes has played something just shy of 60 straight games for Arsenal. It's unfathomable, and the fact that he plays at such a high quality every single time he plays is pretty remarkable. I know he was in for some stick at the beginning of the year. He had a couple rough moments and rash moments, if you will, but I mean, you don't play 60 straight games for a club like Arsenal by accident. I mean, he's unbelievable. He's improved dramatically since his transfer from Lille. It just looks to be a great signing, and somebody who can be a stalwart for many years to come. But Jakub Kiwior, I mean, he fits the mold of everything that we want to do. He's very young. He's 22 years old, although he's about to turn 23 just in a couple weeks now. But in the meantime, he is 22. That's how it works. But nonetheless, I mean, this is somebody who seems to have burst onto the scene very quickly with the Polish national team. Had some really glowing quotes from Robert Lewandowski, who, when you're a 22-year-old kid going against arguably the best striker in the world, getting that sort of credit for what you're doing on the defensive end, but also, I'm not going to lie and say I've watched tons of Spezia games and what he's done, but I mean, this guy pings balls all over the place. Very reminiscent of David Luiz and what Ben White was doing when he was playing center back. I mean, he can play a 60-yard pass on a dime, which is really, really exciting. I'm sure there's a long way to go, but the big thing is we haven't had a competent left-footed left center back for a bit now. Clearly, Pablo Mari was brought in with the hope that he could do that, and it's pretty clear that he cannot, and he is not in the plans for Mikel Arteta. You'd imagine that he would move on in the summer, or at the very least go on another loan. But this guy seems to be the business, and even if he's not going to get to play a whole lot in the next 6 months of this season, I think it's going to be great that he can be around the squad, get used to our style, be in training, I think there's immense value to that, and that'll be really exciting. The other thing is that it looks like he can play multiple positions. So he has featured at left back. He's even featured in defensive midfield. So maybe an emergency option. I don't think that will really ever happen for him, but he's got an impressive past. He is somebody who spent a decent amount of time in the Anderlecht youth system and has come up fairly quickly. So one for the future, I think one we should be excited about, but also patient with. He'll definitely get some cup games. So that'll be, again, really exciting. So moving on to our third and final signing, quite the divisive signing, but Jorginho from Chelsea. So it's underwhelming. There's no way around it. It's an underwhelming signing in comparison to Moises Caicedo, who you're going in for 65 million quid, 70 million quid. I don't for the life of me understand Brighton turning down those bids and that money. I mean, it's worth significantly more than the Europa League, which is, I guess, their target there. I understand losing both Trossard and Caicedo in a window would be pretty damaging, especially January. But I don't quite know how you turn down that money. I mean, the guy is costing you basically nothing to bring in. I mean, a few million, and then you're paying him what, 3,500 quid a week. It's peanuts. It's honestly shocking. And for Brighton to be able to turn that sort of profit seems a no-brainer, but they seem to have their stance, and Arsenal went time and time again, and there were things about Arsenal wanting to continue to go in, but not wanting to damage what seems to be a really good relationship with Brighton, and it looks like that's going to be one for the summer, despite his best pleas on Instagram about feeding his family and what have you. So that should be interesting, seeing how he does or does not reintegrate into Brighton. But you'd imagine he's back in the side in a week or two, and they figure that out. But that brings us to Jorginho. I don't doubt that there were other targets out there, but I think the realistic goal of the January window was to shore up what we have so we can win the title. I think that no matter how good we are and how good we continue to be, there's no guarantee we're in this position again for the title. I mean, you look at the money that's coming into the league right now, with Newcastle being worth, 10 times what City is worth, which seems completely insane. You look at, again, Todd Bowley's Chelsea and the completely illogical spending that's going on there. And you've got what seems like a pretty solid manager at Man United in Erik ten Hag. He seems that he'll actually get time and the chance to apply his style, his strategy, etc. The kind of way that Arsenal have given Arteta. And unfortunately, I think he's going to do pretty well compared to all his predecessors post Sir Alex Ferguson's retirement. So that's going to be tough. Liverpool are clearly about to go through a rebuild. They have to, especially in central midfield. But they've got what they need in defense. You got a guy like Konate who's super, super young. And they've got other center backs. They can always bring somebody in. They're going to go after Jude Bellingham. They just signed Darwin Nunez for big money, and you've got to assume that he will come good. Although I think he has been pretty good this year. I think he gets more stick than he deserves. But the little tweaks there as he adjusts to English football, you'd expect him to be good. So Liverpool are going to be good. Spurs are shit. I don't care about Spurs. They're a complete disaster. And all that money they could have made selling Son and Kane is pretty much gone. Son, you're not going to get much for in comparison to where it was. And now the latest rumor is Kane wants to sign a new deal there. So that giant payday looks to be gone. I mean, again, I could go on with other teams, but long story short, like no matter what we're doing and how good this project is going, there's no guarantee that we're going to be back here with the Premier League. We're also going to have to actually be fighting in Europe with Champions League football. Whereas right now we really haven't had to do much with the Europa League. That'll change in the second half of the season, of course, but this is the chance. So you have to go for it. And Jorginho is an absolutely perfect signing to do it. It made me want to throw up when the rumor first started of Jorginho coming to Arsenal. It just seems wrong. It seems gross. But the more that I sit and I think about it, I mean, this is such a sensible deal. Just like the Trossard deal was sensible. Just like the Jacob Kiwior deal is sensible. This is so sensible. This is a guy who has won everything. There was the interview with Mark Cucurella with Goal.com yesterday as the transfer's going down, and they say, who's the smartest player in the Chelsea squad? No hesitation, he goes, Jorginho, 100%. It's not even close. Then there was the funny moment that they told him he's not a Chelsea player anymore and what have you. But, I mean, this is a guy Arteta's tried to sign twice. And he was somebody that they tried to pay, like £50 million for when he was still an assistant manager at City. I mean, this is a guy that Arsenal have gone at. I mean, he's a brilliant player. He is so calm on the ball. Is he lightning quick? No, he's not. But this is a player we're signing on an 18-month deal. This means he comes in as a part of the locker room, can be a leader, knows what it takes to win. We're adding winners. We're adding him. We're adding Zinchenko. We're adding Gabriel Jesus. I mean, these are winners. They've been there. They've done that. And they're not coming in like, hey, guys, let's get top 4. They're coming in like, no, we're going for the title. And he's going to hopefully not have to play a lot of games. He'll play Europa League. And then he basically takes El Neni's spot, which is unfortunate since it seems like we did our best to keep that under wraps, but El Neni's probably done for the season. Hopefully it's no longer than just this season. But he did his knee. He had surgery. It's probably an ACL, which means that we're probably not seeing Mohamed El Neni again this season. Think what you will about him. I absolutely love Mohamed El Neni. I think he's the most ideal squad player you can have. He's happy to continue at Arsenal at whatever place he's in. He's loved by the squad. I hope he becomes some sort of coach for us one day. I know he's doing his badges with us. And the interesting thing is it sounds like it'll be announced shortly that we are triggering a 1-year extension on his contract again. So, is that because we really want or need him next season? I don't know. Is it the classy thing that Arsenal Football Club does and has done before for guys in the past? Absolutely. And I think it's one of the things that separates us as a club, to do the right thing. But, Jorginho's going to have to take in that spot behind Xhaka and Partey. We let Sambi go to Crystal Palace, which we'll get into later. So this is the guy. I mean, in terms of somebody to come in late in the game and help shore everything up, keep control, keep possession. Again, this is a really, really, really smart signing, and one that I hope the fans can get behind. Again, I was sick when I heard about it, but the more I think about it, it makes so much sense. It's such a smart signing. And after 18 months, he comes in next season, sticks around, is additional depth for Champions League football. We have a 1-year option if it actually works out. And if it doesn't, we all walk away. And the other big thing is that it doesn't impact our approach in the summer at all. Not even a little bit. It's literally to shore up the title this season, add experience, add depth, add more winning mentality. But this summer, we get to go after the targets that we genuinely want. Sure, we can go back in for a Saicedo, if we so please. I really hope it's not at that money. I think the money is completely and utterly ridiculous. Declan Rice, I mean, I don't think Chelsea are done in that race. For a while, it seemed dead rubber. He's going to Chelsea. I think him to Arsenal makes a ton of sense, and I hope that happens. Again, I think it's a perfect move for all parties, and I get so excited at the thought of him with Arteta as his manager, and all the other people we have here who can influence him. Again, a Jorginho, a Zinchenko, like so many things they can add to his game, and he's just scratching the surface of his ability, and he's a phenomenal player. But the other one who I'd have to admit I don't know a ton about personally, but everyone seems to rave about, is Zubimendi from Sociedad. The release clause was super reasonable for January, but he seems to be a local who wants to stay there and be there at least through the end of the season. It's the same place as Arteta's hometown, and there should be an easy, great connection there. And again, it seems like somebody who's just a perfect fit for the system based on what I'm seeing and hearing. But again, I'd be lying if I said I knew him super well myself. These are the deals you want to get done in the summer. January, you're not getting any favors done in January for you. These are clubs that are in the middle of their season, are trying to either win titles, stay up, get into Europe, whatever it is. There's not a whole lot of clubs who are super, super calm and going to give you any sort of deal. Whereas in the summer, this is where you can get much more reasonable deals across the board. That's what we should be banking on. I think we've done what we needed this window to strengthen the side and ultimately our shot at the title. Let's see. I think we're much better positioned in the areas where we had those devastating injuries. I think if Thomas Partey goes down, no matter who you bring in, there aren't other Thomas Parteys. There's basically no one who does exactly what Thomas Partey does. And to expect anyone to step into that role and do it perfectly, that's going to be darn tough. A Jorginho is somebody who you would think is going to be as well positioned as anybody to come in and do a job and not have us suffer. I mean, there's the concept of moving Zinchenko into that role, and then you start Tierney, which again goes back to another area where we had serious issues with left back, striker. There was obviously the issue last January of, do you buy another one? I think Nketiah did a really phenomenal job, and he's proven through the Jesus injury this year that he deserved every penny of that deal. I mean, it looks like an absolute steal to have him on $100K a week. No transfer fee because you just brought him back. I mean, it looks a really, really, really smart deal. And he's a player that if we wanted to, and I hope we don't, I mean, we could sell for a gigantic fee and he would get a nice payday, and it would just be pure profit from our standpoint, given that he came in as an academy player. I mean, he's English, so you get the English tax. I mean, it's a dream to have him in the side, and I don't think Gabriel Jesus walks right back into his place either. He's going to have to fight for it. And Nketiah is scoring goals. Jesus did a lot of great things when he was in the side, but unfortunately, scoring goals really wasn't one of them for a while before he got injured. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do there. There's the concept of keeping Nketiah top and play Jesus on a wing, as I know we wanted to get at least one more winger. In the perfect world, there was the talk of both Joao Felix and Mudryk. Obviously, none of those happened, but we did get Trossard. So let's see what that can lead to in the summer again. But just overall, really pleased. If I were to give a grade for this window, I'd probably give it a B+, or a 7.5 out of 10, something like that. Did we get the superstar signings? No. Did we get the signings that give you warm and fuzzies and you're jumping around going crazy? No. Does that happen in January? All that happen? No, it doesn't. Not for anybody. If it does happen in January, you're going to overpay dramatically, and that's the theme of it. And Arsenal have been really sensible, and I think Edu and Arteta have done a great job of not being drawn into overpaying for players and not being drawn into sagas and having their limits and knowing when it's time to say, okay, hands up, we're out, we're done, we're not going any further. That might upset some people. You might disagree with me, and that's okay. I think it's going to be really smart for the long term, for the wage structure, for everything. I mean, we're building something really special, but again, really, really sustainable. My keyword for this window is sensible. Everything we did was sensible on the ins. Let's talk about the outs now. So there were really only two key outs here. And again, I think they both make a lot of sense. One was Cedric, who I'm sure it must not have been easy because he seems to really love life at Arsenal. I don't blame him. He gets to sit on the bench and get paid $100K a week. But he's not playing. He's not getting minutes. And he's got a chance to go to a Fulham side who clearly need a right back. He should get to play. He's got a big body in Mitrovic up top, and we know how much Cedric loves to put in crosses. That should work out pretty nicely. You'd hope so. It's a player that, candidly, we never should have signed, and is a look back to the Kia Jorabakian era of agent influence that I hope we never do again, as those signings just worked out super well for us, clearly. But yeah, it's one that makes sense. I mean, we don't need him. We just don't. I guess a couple injuries, we might need him, but the odds of that are pretty slim. He'll get to go. We get his wages off the books, which, again, I know we got plenty of money to spend, but it doesn't hurt to get $100K off the wage packet. So that's pretty good. Hope he does well in West London. It's a really great club, really awesome stadium, and hopefully the fans take to him. The one that I think we should spend a little bit more time is Sambi Lokonga. So, I mean, this is a player that just, it's not happening for him right now. He's had opportunities when he came to Arsenal. I mean, he got thrown in right away because of injuries, and I think to judge him on playing the Thomas Partey role for the time that he was out, I don't think that's super fair. I don't think he's a 6 at all. I think he was asked to do a job and understandably struggled. That's just not his position. It's okay. All good. Where I do take issue is his ability to play what I think is more of his natural position, which is more of an 8. I mean, he just struggles on the ball. Most of the time he's okay. I mean, at first he was very timid, kind of like the El Neni of old. A lot of backwards passes, sideways passes, just not a whole lot of confidence in trying to break the lines and play forward passes. I mean, every so often you'd see him spray a ball out to the side, and it was nice because you could see there's something there, but he needed the confidence to do it. And every so often it would pop out, but not really with any actual consistency. Where he really, really seems to struggle is off the ball. His positioning is just consistently poor. He just puts us in trouble. There's a number of goals that you could say are down to him. I mean, I can't imagine Martin Odegaard throwing his arms up and screaming the way that he did in the last match when Sambi was out of position. I mean, that's just not something I ever thought I would see from Martin Odegaard. And I know it's something Arteta has been very clear he doesn't want to see. But Odegaard was pissed. There was the clip from All or Nothing at the lunch table where he's complaining about not playing, and you've got the likes of Eddie Nketiah saying, "Yeah, man, no shit, I want to play too. Put your head down and work." He's had some really iffy quotes about the Belgium setup, trashing Roberto Martinez as the manager and the handling of things. And then in the summer about wanting to leave Arsenal, but then realizing being in training with Arsenal is better than playing for another club. And just the storming off the pitch, not clapping the away fans. I get that as a person. If you're getting booed and negged over and over and over, you don't exactly want to go clap the people who did that to you. But I think that's just part of being a professional footballer. The way he stormed down the tunnel, didn't even look at the away. Mentally, he's not there. I feel for him, but I also understand us, even given that we're light in midfield. If Arteta's not going to trust him and doesn't see him playing in any of the games, really, the rest of the way, It's more important he goes and gets minutes. And the fact that he's going to Crystal Palace to play under a certain Patrick Vieira, if he doesn't take anything from both Mikel Arteta or Patrick Vieira about playing central midfield, I think that we can rightfully move on. I hope he goes there. I hope he does well. I hope he gets minutes. I hope he improves. I mean, the best case scenario is he goes there, plays really well, figures it out, and comes back to Arsenal, a really improved player, mentally ready to go, and he can be a part of that squad because we're going to need extra bodies there for Champions League and FA Cup and League Cup and all those competitions that we're hopefully going to be in next season. Yes, we want to make one or two probably big signings, but there's a place for Sambi if he can prove that he deserves it. With that said, I'll also add Partey and Xhaka not getting any younger. Jorginho already not young. So between those three, I mean, there are going to be openings soon for him to make a difference. And again, best case scenario, comes in, does that. It's great. He reintegrates. It doesn't always happen. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Another scenario, he goes, he does well. We have other targets lined up, and we're able to then sell him on for a decent fee. At the very least, get our money back, hopefully even a little profit. That would be amazing. And then the other scenario is he goes there, either doesn't play or plays and looks bad, has similar issues in terms of the on the field, the off the field, and it doesn't happen. He comes back. We have to sell him. Hopefully we can still at least get our money back, or at least close to it. I mean, he's still a young player. He has a cap for Belgium, captain Anderlecht, got to play for Arsenal. I mean, he still should be a very attractive player. Some players just aren't fits. You look at Willian, came to us, he was fucking awful. But he's doing great at Fulham. You would have thought never in a million years he could play in the Premier League again. Just sometimes certain clubs and certain players just don't gel. Maybe that's the case with Sambi. Maybe he's just shit. I don't know. But we'll see. I mean, I don't think, again, it's over for him. But let's see. I mean, I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he stays off of social media because I think a lot of the things on there aren't the kindest. Not that he's doing anything to help his situation, but we'll see. So again, I think that as we look to the summer, we've got some positions that we're going to need to fill. We're going to need a deeper squad when it comes to Champions League football. We're not playing, FC Mold or Bodo Glimt or Zurich or, no disrespect to those clubs, but we're playing real high-level competition more often than not in the Champions League. Yeah, sure, there might be a cupcake in the group, but you can't just, play all of your backups, let's say. And I should say the backups need to be of a standard. Your backups at City, your backups at, obviously Chelsea have got one or two backup wingers. There are 12 backup wingers now, but not that they'll be in the Champions League. They're sitting in 10th, and it's absolutely hilarious. But we're going to need to have legitimate quality in competition for places. You need a Martinelli, Trossard, Smith Rowe competition. We need something like that for Saka. We need that at different positions. We need an Nketiah Jesus competition in all of our positions. That's what we need if we're going to really compete and play at the highest level. So we're going to bring in some big signings. But again, we have a much higher chance of getting that done in the summer than in January. I think the other thing is we need to also look at who's going to have to probably go in the summer. Arsenal of 2023 is very different than Arsenal of 2022 or 21 or 29, etc. It's a different club. It's a different mindset. It's a different level. And Arteta's Arsenal requires certain skill sets that players that have been with us are just not going to do. I mean, it kills me to say it, but Rob Holding, I mean, that's a player who he can't play in this new Arsenal. We need center backs who can play a higher line, who have speed, who are confident in possession on the ball, can play out from the back well. I mean, if Rob Holding's your fourth center back, that's pretty good. Don't get me wrong. Just unfortunately not for this Arsenal. He will do amazingly well for a number of other Premier League clubs. He's English. He has so much Premier League experience. He's played in big games, some better than others, of course. But the point is, I mean, that's a guy that, as much as I absolutely love him, and he's amazing as a part of the culture, clearly. I mean, he's super well respected, but he's got to go. I mean, he can't play in this iteration of Arsenal. It's looking like Kieran Tierney might have to go the same way. I mean, this is a guy who is the first name on the team sheet, without a doubt. But at this point, I mean, the left back at Arsenal is a very different position. It's not a traditional left back. It's basically a central midfield player. And the way that Zinchenko is doing it, and I'm not saying there's a whole lot of Zinchenkos out there, it just doesn't seem like Kieran Tierney is the best fit for this system. Whereas he will be a amazing fit for 99% of other systems. And he's a player we should be able to get a pretty nice fee on. And if I'm Kieran Tierney, I want to be playing week in, week out. Would I like to keep him? Because I think we're going to need high-level competition for places. Yeah. Can he continue to grow into the style that we play? Just like, say, when a Matt Turner came in. I mean, Matt Turner was a shot-stopping goalkeeper. He never had to play with the ball at his feet. But look at him now. I mean, he looked really, really good in that City match in the FA Cup, playing with the ball at his feet. I mean, totally different player than the one who arrived. So I think that there's a place for Tierney if he wants to stay, but I also would understand if he doesn't want to. I expected El Neni to go after the Jorginho signing and the fact that it's 18 months with a further year option. But again, we're taking that up. Is it because we see him legitimately playing, or is it because this is the Arsenal and we do things the right way? I don't know. But we'll see. I think there's a lot that's going to change. I think the summer market, between the money that Newcastle have come in with, the idiocy of Chelsea right now, and the way that they're ruining the market, between the Enzo deal, between the Mudryk deal, between United's fidget spinner Antony deal, it's going to be really interesting. I think, when I started watching the Premier League, which was realistically in the early 2000s, you had your big four in the English Premier League. And once the TV money came into the league, you saw the lower level teams in the league, the ones who were typically battling relegation, I mean, shattering their transfer records, bringing in really legitimate players that would have never gone to those clubs in the past, bringing in managers who would have never gone to those clubs in the past. And we have this setup where Team 20 can beat Team 1 on any given day. I'm worried that we're kind of going backwards in that regard, and that the fair play concept, RIP financial fair play, as if FFP was ever a thing, when the typical punishment for breaking FFP is a fine, which is laughable because the money's irrelevant. But nonetheless, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So lastly, let's close in terms of the outlook for the rest of the season. I think that we're really strong at just about every position. You look at what the potential bench is now, and it's not academy kids. It's not Matt Smith. I really hope he gets his appearance one day before he leaves. He deserves to get at least one appearance. I mean, he's got to have a record for times he's been on the bench and never actually gotten on the pitch. It's actually quite remarkable. But, I think we're pretty good in most positions. Without a doubt, we're light in midfield, but I think that absolute worst case scenario, there are players you can repurpose, between Xhaka and Partey, and then you've got Jorginho behind them. I think you can shift Zinchenko in there. I think that the signing of Trossard tells you that Arteta and Edu don't see Emil Smith-Rowe's long-term position on the left wing, or at least they're not willing to bank on his fitness, but I think ultimately they don't see his long-term position there. You've got Fabio Vieira, who can probably step in and do a job. Again, are these things ideal? Of course not. But, that's the one area we're light, and I think we're okay. We're at a point where, knock on wood, Ramsdale doesn't go down for any reason. But I sure feel a heck of a lot more confident in Matt Turner coming in than I did, say 4 months ago, given the fact that he looks like he's doing okay with the ball at his feet, and he's vastly improved there. He's undoubtedly a great shot stopper. He comes up with big plays. He's proven that. In MLS, he's proven that for the U.S. men's national team, and he's even recently started to prove that with Arsenal. So long may that continue. You got good competition at right back. You look, Ben White has a bad half for whatever reason that was. Tomiyasu comes in. I don't think you can just give Ben White his position back. I think Tomiyasu probably keeps that place. But we'll see. Again, Tierney at left back. You've got really good center halves. I don't think there's a better center half duo between William Saliba and Gabriel, and you've got people who can chuck in there if absolutely need be as well. We mentioned midfield, Odegaard's position. You got Vieira right behind him. You could potentially put a Smith Rowe in there if you have to, and then between the wings, the only area you could maybe say we're struggling, and I think is a rightful shout, is the right wing. Do I think other guys can do a job on the right wing? If called upon, sure. But that's something we're going to need to address in the summer, is a really legitimate top talent that pushes Bukayo Saka. Do I think anyone would take Bukayo Saka out of the team? No. Let's be real. I highly doubt it. But clearly, we need realistic, legitimate competition and talent there. And I think that's something that we'll look to in the summer again. Striker position's good. Balogun, stoppage time equalizer against Paris Saint-Germain. What a season he's having. It'll be really interesting to see what Arsenal do between Gabriel Jesus, Eddie Nketiah, and Fuller and Balogun. So I think that's all we got. We covered a lot. Transfer window is shut. Second half of the season is underway. We're 5 points clear of City with a game in hand. Our strength of schedule is better, but it's all going to come down to those 2 games that we have home and away in the league against City. I don't think that the FA Cup match could have gone much better, but I think if we can win one of those matches, title's ours. I think if we can not let them win both, let's say they beat us once and draw us once and take 4 points, I think that's a huge boost to our title hopes. But it's going to be a dogfight. I think it was James on the Arscast who is looking at, I think, past seasons, and I could be confusing it with Arsenal Vision, and if I am, I apologize. But they've done some crazy things in the second half of the season when it comes to the average points that they return. So, they could take 50 points from the second half, and that's going to push us, and I think they will, and it's going to be exciting. It's a privilege to be in this position. Let's just hope we can do it. So we will leave it there. As always, we appreciate all of you listening to really our first legitimate episode of the podcast. So again, thank you for those who have been reading the blog. Thank you for those who have stuck around to listen to this entire podcast with me. Again, my name's PJ Davidson. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at AbsoluteAFC, and you can read the blog at www.absoluteafc.com. Thanks again. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.